Greetings, greetings, greetings. It's Thomas Rusbazar with the Poet Warriors back at you. And today I would like to start a series on the writing process, which will turn into the completion of a novel, which will turn into the editing process, which will turn into the, hey, I need to write a query letter, a synopsis, and all that stuff. And then also the submission process and the rejection process and how to navigate through all this. Okay, so square one. I've been working on a book. The title of the book, tentatively, is called Chupa. I finished my first draft about a week ago, and now I am embarking on my second draft. Now, my first draft I write in longhand, in a moleskin notebook with a fountain pen, and that's how I've been writing my last couple of projects, 2 or 3 projects, and then I transfer it to the Word document, Google Doc, or whatever you want to call it, Word document, and that is a part of the revising process. Is when I transfer it over. That's like my second draft. I already have my first draft. That's in longhand. And before that, this book, the story centers. It's a historical piece, kind of an Americana type of a vibe, a type of a genre. Americana meaning 1850s, early San Francisco. So I had to do a good amount of research and focused on a particular kind of, aspect of that town, in its birth, in its infancy. A couple of focuses, one being the whole theatrical world, the acting world, and the other one being kind of the lawlessness and kind of having these vigilante groups and this free-for-all type of, free-for-all type of existence that was taking place right after the gold rush. So I did a good amount of research in that period, a lot of historical research that I had to do as I was writing, before and in the writing. So, of course, there's a mix of fact and fiction in this book, in this a novel that I just completed. So, longhand, first draft done. Now I am getting into the second draft of it. So what do we look for in that process? Well, number one thing is, besides the cleaning up of grammatical stuff, right? That's always important. The second thing I look for is the voice of whoever is telling the story. And in my case, a character, one of the main characters, is talking in the first person and telling the story of what he sees and what he experiences. And, he's kind of in the middle of this world in which I create. So that voice, I need to, number one, be legitimate in terms of what I think of as how they speak. How are they speaking? How are the characters speaking? Females, males, this type of strata of society that I'm focusing in on, trying to make that as legitimate as possible in terms of dialogue, in terms of description, in terms of it all. So I have to kind of look at that, and there's a rhythm to that. I am very big on rhythm in writing in terms of the sensitivity as I write in the words and how I construct the words and the syntax and everything and how it lies on the page and how it sounds. In my mind, there has to be a consistency of rhythm and music to the words, to the language that I am employing, that I'm using. So that really has to be one of the main focuses. And that's something that I am looking at more than any. I don't know if you call that voice, call it style, as it pertains to each individual novel, not just a novelist, like, oh, I have a style. Well, this book is much different than my other books I've written. So I think every book has its own voice, has its own rhythm, has its own style, type of language that you employ. Like, you could be a writer who doesn't, you are very brief, sparse. People look at all your books and see that that's how you write. But within that, are you telling it in the third person? Are you telling it in the first person? Are you telling it in omniscient? Then, you get into that aspect. You get into to that detail. But it's still, there is a rhythm. There's a music. So that is one of the main focuses. There are others which I'll get to in ensuing. As I write, I will share. But that's the main focus right now, is other than the grammar and cleaning up the spelling and this and that and the commas and punctuation, I'm looking at that consistency in the music. Is it consistent from the very first line to the very last line, and getting that kind of rhythm, and also you're looking at, narrative. Hey, I referenced this early on. Did it disappear? Am I repeating it too much? These kind of things also. In terms of the narration, where, the dots of a story and how they're being kind of put together. Are they taking strange leaps or things that don't make sense? Or you're really pushing for a reason, and kind of, taking a leap of faith for something in the story, but you think it's right at that time. So that's another thing I look at. Anyway, that's part. This is the early part of the revision process, draft 2. What do you look for? And we'll get into more of that, what else I'm working on and looking at with this novel that I've just recently completed my first draft of. And we're going to get into eventually editing, working with an editor, what goes on with that, then query writing, synopsis, then how to submit, what agents, what publishers, what small presses, self-publishing, all these things. And I'm going to be sharing this process, which is probably going to be it could be a lengthy process, or it could be, hopefully, a process where I land an agent, whatever, usually an agent, that will hopefully get my book to a wide audience, a publisher, an editor, or I'm not an editor, I have my own editor, but a publishing house, and we'll go from there. Hopefully. We'll see. Peace.
Tasty.